Hello, everyone. Jim Revell here, the chaplain, and I hope everyone is doing well. I want to tell you a little story for the week from the life of Abraham Lincoln. And it's actually a technique or principle he used that served him well after a very shocking lesson that he learned when he was in his early 30s. Lincoln was a newspaper editor, and he was also an attorney. And in the town that he lived in, where he resided, there was a very bombastic a politician by the name of James Shields that Lincoln really had a hard time with. And so Lincoln, using his pen, wrote a very scathing and denigrating letter to the newspaper, publicly defaming Shields. And the town thought it was hilarious. However, Shields did not. And being the arrogant person that he was, he challenged Lincoln to a duel, because they did that in those days. And so, because it was a public thing, Lincoln was going to duel with James Shields. Well, as the day arrived, fortunately for Lincoln, minutes before the duel, it was called off, to which Lincoln was absolutely relieved. But he learned a lesson. And here's the lesson he learned. He learned never publish an insulting letter, but still write it. Now that's interesting. Never publish it, but still write it. And so, about 20 years later, in the middle of the Civil War, in July of 1863, General Robert E. Lee, the general in charge of the Confederate Army, was trapped between the Potomac River and also the Union Army gaining on him. And Lincoln thought, this is great. We have got him. This can shorten the war. And so he ordered General Meade to basically press in and capture General Lee, or he ordered Meade to capture Lee. And unfortunately, Meade did not follow through. And Lincoln was incensed. And so he took to letter writing, and he wrote this scathing letter that just tore into Meade and expressed his anger and frustration, but he never sent it. In fact, after Lincoln passed away, they found a stack of written letters that were never sent to people he was frustrated with. And I think it's very interesting because in many of those cases, as they researched it out, they found that then he went back into situations that he was frustrated with and he resolved the conflict, including the thing that he faced with Lee. And so here's the principle. You could do this. In fact, the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA, says that writing down your thoughts, just like a gratitude journal, but writing down your frustrations. Maybe you're struggling with a coworker. Maybe your spouse forgot that one thing that you asked them to bring you from the store, or maybe it's a project that a colleague has fumbled the ball on. Here's the principle. Lincoln would write out his honest feelings. So you could write a scathing email to that person, but don't send it to them. Send it back to yourself. And then reread it after an hour or so and say, how could I say this better? Because what happened was, when the anger came out of Lincoln, then he was able now to put his arms around the situation and think about it more clearly. In fact, the 26th president of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, would go to the portrait, the painting of Lincoln in the White House when he was under a stressful thing, and he'd look at the Lincoln portrait and he'd say, how would Abraham Lincoln have handled this? Because this was kind of a known principle. So it's a principle of operating in self-control. And here's what Lincoln said. When you brutally chastise someone, it only makes them defend themselves and justify their actions. It hurts someone's pride and it arouses resentment. He said the person who has the right to criticize has the heart to help. So whether you put it out in writing, it'd probably be good to write it out, but then fold the letter up and read it again, and then recreate the situation, or maybe you email it to yourself. But it's the idea of getting past the anger so you can get fuel to be able to address the problem. And so that's my thought for the day, is dealing with that. And so Lincoln said this: "Whatever you are, be a good one." And so that would be my encouragement for the day from the chaplain. Thank you.